Hello my loves, thank you for joining me on another video. My name is Ennie and I post solved, unsolved and missing persons cases on my channel. If true crime is the kind of thing, you're welcome. Consider subscribing to this channel. Our case today is from Lagos, Nigeria. Lagos is considered one of the fastest growing cities in the world. It is a reminder of what Nigeria was and what it has become. Lagos is a city where good things can happen to you. And really bad things can also happen to you. This is the case of Symphorosa Otike Odibi. Little is known about Odibi's childhood and upbringing, but as a young adult, he first studied English at the University of Benin and later went to Epoma University to study law. Upon graduation, he served his country in the compulsory NYSC at Onne in Rivers State and would immediately start his first law firm with a friend of his he had met at the university. They started very small at a room in the Agidingbi area of Lagos before they got their big break and started building a modern edifice for the firm. Even though the two would eventually fall out, they separated amicably and Odibi would move on to better and greater things. His friend had left the law firm for him when they had their misunderstanding, so he took charge as a senior founding partner and turned the firm into a first-rate law firm called Johnson Bryant. People who worked with him said he was highly professional in his work. Friends and family described him as a warm, kind, gentle, patient and generous man who was slow to anger. He was a peacemaker, not adversarial in nature, and always taking the route of compromise. Odibi got married to his first wife and they had a daughter together. That marriage didn't last at all. Odibi and his wife separated and eventually they got divorced after some years. I am not sure of the circumstances surrounding his first marriage, but he was said to be on very good terms with his ex-wife, who is a very senior corporate lawyer at a first-generation bank. There was absolutely no lasting bitterness or rancor from the divorce, so they remained cordial for the sake of their daughter. Years later, Odibi will meet Udeme, a beautiful lady from Akwa Ibom State who was a staff in his law firm. While Udeme was working with him, the two will fall in love and start up a relationship. They will get married in October of 2014. I couldn't find much as regards what Udeme's life was like prior to her meeting Odibi. What we do know is that she was about 44 years old when they got married and Odibi was about 47 years old. I am not sure if she was married before or anything of that sort, but after they got married, the couple lived together at Diamond Estate, which is located in the Sango Tendo area in Lagos State. As a lawyer, Udeme was on top of her game. Probably this was the attraction for Odibi. She was really good at what she did. Professionally, Udeme was a top-tier lawyer with a very impressive portfolio. She was not just a brilliant lawyer, she was a financial guru who had worked in banks, the Nigerian Stock Exchange, and overseas. At a point, she had even been a player in the oil and gas industry before she joined Odibi's firm. By this time, Odibi's child from his previous marriage was grown and studying in the UK, so she wasn't around all that. She only visits once in a while to check with her father. At first, this second marriage to Udeme seemed perfect, but cracks began to appear rather too quickly. It was said that months into the marriage, Udeme, who used to be cool, calm, and collected, was no longer happy. A lot of people speculated it was allegedly because she had been looking for a child so badly, but she wasn't able to conceive. She had even indicated on her LinkedIn page that children are uppermost among the three causes she cares about. I understand this perfectly, considering the fact that she got married in her mid-40s. She must have really wanted a child badly because her biological clock was ticking. Well, I also think that women shouldn't worry much about these things anymore. Technology has advanced. There's IVF, there's surrogacy, and you can also adopt too. According to some of her friends, Udeme's mind allegedly snapped when she suspected that her husband was having an affair. She was alleged to have turned to a recluse as her marriage began to experience difficulties. She was said to have a jealousy streak that spilled to the office. Staff at work said that she never wanted to see any lady close to Odibi both at work and outside work, no matter what the excuse was. A worker once said, quote, "We the female staff know the kind of person Udeme was. she's nice, she's kind, but doesn't allow us to relate with Odibi except on administrative grounds, end quote. Well, that was understandable as Odibi was known and described as a woman's man. A friend of his even said they thought there really was another woman in his life and Udeme must have somehow found out about it. It was also gathered that she had stopped going to work sometime in 2017, I think. I am not sure why, but I'm guessing she couldn't stand the tension between herself and her husband at work, or maybe the other woman could have been a staff at that firm. In 2017, after she had stopped going to work, Udeme confided in her best friend that she and Odibi were having issues in their marriage and that she wasn't happy. So she was traveling to the UK to take some time off. Just cool off and figure out how to fix her marriage or decide on what steps she would probably like to take next. Now, before she traveled that December of 2017, Odibi and Udeme had a huge fight. I couldn't find any information on what that particular fight was about, but according to the housekeeper, when she went to clean their bedroom after the fight, she saw the couple's wedding photograph torn and thrown into the trash can, so she packed them and threw them away. On December 4, 2017, Udeme made her trip to the UK and came back in April of 2018. That would be the next year during the Easter holidays. And according to her housekeeper, she had changed a lot on her return from the UK and it had absolutely nothing to do with her physical appearance. Rather, it was character-wise. So Udeme was no longer cooking for her husband when she returned from the UK. She would cook only her food and her husband would have to buy his own food from restaurants. Meanwhile, Udeme had again confided in her best friend upon her return from the UK that Odibi wasn't eating at home. According to her, he was rejecting her food anytime she cooked for him, so not knowing exactly how to get ahead of the situation, she decides not to bother with cooking his food anymore. I don't know if it's her version that is true or the housekeeper's narrative that is true. What I mean is, we do not know if Odibi on his own decided not to eat her food and preferred buying his own food, or he was pushed to rely on buying himself food because she refused to cook for him. Well, her friend advised her to continue cooking for him even if he wasn't eating, that he will come around eventually, probably change his mind if he sees she's putting a lot of effort into it. Around this time, Udeme also went to meet her sister-in-law's husband, that is the man who married Odibi's sister, to complain about the issues going on in her marriage. Maybe she felt Odibi respected his brother-in-law enough to listen to him. That was why she went there. That means she was really making an effort to fix her marriage, right? Well, let's see how this visit goes. Nothing changed after this visit, of course, because Odibi and Udeme were still not talking to each other, even though they were sharing the same bed, and Odibi was still not eating at home. So apparently, they just maintained status quo. Not too long afterwards, things deteriorated very badly and quickly. Udeme was accusing Odibi of infidelity, and allegedly there were incidents of domestic violence. Even though I don't know exactly at what point this happened or what exactly went down, or if this was something that had been going on or something that just started, I just couldn't find any information about this domestic violence situation online. Also, allegedly, things escalated when Udeme, for whatever reasons, demanded that Odibi willed all his properties to her, and he refused. His argument was that his daughter, who was at this point schooling outside the country, must have a share of his properties. Now, this information was kind of confusing to me because it just really didn't make sense that she would be asking for properties to be willed to her if she was looking at divorcing him. They are both learned individuals, so this kind of demand was like, let me say, out of pocket. I think they definitely know how to go about dividing their assets as lawyers. I'm thinking maybe they were talking divorce and what she was asking for was like a chunk of his wealth, and he was refusing to meet her conditions for this divorce. That is quite different from willing all of his properties to her, right? Well, Udeme told her best friend, same best friend she had been confiding in all this while, that she wants to return back to the UK. According to her, the heat at her home was becoming unbearable, so she needed to leave again. Mind you, she came back from the UK about a month prior, but if living would help the situation, why not? So her friend went over to her house and helped her pack up. That was now on the 2nd of May 2018. Her flight was scheduled for the next day, being the 3rd of May. While they were at home, They were packing and talking. Odibi, on the other hand, was working at the office. So according to his staff, when he arrived on that Wednesday, he went straight to his office. After some hours, he came up, called everyone together and started preaching that spouses should love each other. He said that nobody can predict what will happen to him or her in the next second, so they should learn to enjoy life. He sent one of his staff to go and buy food at an eatery for everyone, and they all ate and wined together at the office. It was kind of odd and strange that out of nowhere he was advising and buying lunch for his staff on that day. Well, that was the last time his staff would see him alive. That was the very last time Odibi would come to work in the firm he built from the ground up, because upon his return home that evening, something transpired between Odibi and his wife. So much that words were exchanged and threats were made. Odibi took the threats quite seriously, so he called his friend and neighbor that night to tell him that his wife was threatening to attack him with a sharp kitchen utensil. This friend and neighbor of his told him to be careful and to leave the house if it was absolutely necessary and if he felt his life was in danger. Of course your life is in danger if someone was threatening you with something very sharp. Odibi will also then go on to call his family, that is his mother and sister, to let them know his wife was threatening to take his life. The fight continued very late into the night. At a point during the fight, Odibi's mother had called her son to find out if things had calmed down, and he told her that right at that very moment, Udeme was actually hitting him with a frying pan and that she also had the sharp utensil with her. Worried, the mother, who was far away and didn't know what to do, called the sister again to tell her that the situation had become worse and that her brother's life could really be in danger. Odibi's sister called a friend and neighbor. That's the same one whom Odibi had earlier called to complain to. By this time it was about 2 a.m. but she insisted that the neighbor had to go to her brother's house and check exactly what was happening over there. The neighbor quickly rushed over to the house but could not gain access to the compound because no one answered when he knocked at the gate. He called Odibi's name several times but no one responded. So he went back to his house thinking all was well, only to rush back to Odibi's house the second time when his sister called again saying it was a life-threatening situation and something must have happened to one or both of them for no one to be answering the door. The neighbor at this point went with his wife and he also called the estate security men to come along after explaining that a resident of the estate might be in danger. Now, when they arrived back at Odibi's residence, the gate was locked from the inside, so some people had to climb the fence into the compound. Then they opened the gate from the inside to let others in. They also had to break down the front door to gain access into the house. According to the neighbor, he ran upstairs immediately the door came down, and as he was making his way up the stairs, he saw what he assumed was red vital body fluids on the floor. He then began to follow the trail to the master bedroom, which was locked, so he couldn't get access. He called one of the security men who came to him, and together they had to break the door down. That's the bedroom door. And there, laying on his bed, was Odibi and his wife Udeme laying side by side. And there in that room was the same vital body fluids everywhere. The scene was intense. Odibi's inside were outside his body. You know what I mean? The sight was too much for him to handle, so he ran out of there immediately. And as he got to the staircase, he met Odibi's sister coming up to the bedroom. Apparently, although while she had been calling, she was already on her way to her brother's house. So he tries to stop her from entering the room because he didn't want her to see what he had just seen. But she ran past him and entered the room anyways. A few minutes later, the sister runs out of the room, screaming that her brother was gone but that the wife was still breathing. She had checked her brother and found out that he had already passed on, and he was even cold to touch. He was holding something in his right hand, but she didn't know what it was. We'll get into that shortly. So at that point, everyone rushed into the room upon hearing that the wife was still breathing. They called the police and they helped the wife to the hospital. By the time the police arrived, Udeme was already receiving treatment at the hospital, and a proper assessment of the crime scene began as investigators looked forward to unraveling the entire situation. Now, evidence at the crime scene showed that Odibi had been beaten and stabbed multiple times while he lay on his back. His insides were basically hanging out of his body. A large sharp kitchen utensil covered in red vital body fluids and a frying pan were found at the scene. This seemed to be telling a story of what had happened in that bedroom. Meanwhile, Udeme is at the hospital all this time receiving treatment. Her injuries were said to be superficial and non-life-threatening by doctors, so it was okay for her to be questioned. So just a couple of hours after the incident, investigators set out to the hospital to question Udeme. They wanted to know exactly what had happened at that house. She agreed to talk to the detective without a lawyer present, and this was her own version of what had happened on that fateful night. She said they were having marital issues and her husband was having extramarital affairs, and whenever she raised the issue with him, his response was not satisfactory at all. He appeared nonchalant about the situation and made it look like she was only making all of this up just for nothing. And on that day, May 2nd, 2018, she was preparing to travel to the United Kingdom when she checked the bedside locker for her marriage certificate. When she could not find it, she went to him where he was laying in bed and asked him about it, but the response given was not okay. I am assuming he had said, "I don't have it," or "I don't know where it is." Well, she went on to have a discussion with him and there were hot exchange of words, which made her to go to the kitchen and get a frying pan and the sharp object. That doesn't sound like a discussion to me at all. To my understanding, a discussion is when one person speaks and the other person listens to understand and vice versa. When she returned where he was laying down, she hit him on the head with the frying pan and said, "Tell me what is on your mind that you're withholding." Apparently, Odibi wasn't talking. He was trying to ignore her and this infuriated her the more. At that point, he picked up his phone. His mother was calling and he reported Udeme's conduct to her. That was the time he told his mom that she had a sharp object and a frying pan. She continued to hit him on the head again and again, and while he tried to fend her off. Finally, she said that she used the sharp kitchen utensil on his abdomen several times. She also said while the deceased fell back on the bed and was laying on his back, she was still angry and very upset as she just kept going at him. She sat beside him, looking at his insides spilling out of his stomach and said, "If your manhood is what is giving you license to have feelings for other persons, it's better we cut it off." So she proceeded to do so, with the same sharp kitchen utensil she used in stabbing him. Then she placed the severed member in his right hand. Remember I told you earlier that Odibi's sister had seen him holding something in his hand, but she didn't know what it was. Well, that was it. Odibi had his manhood in his hands. As her husband lay there sleeping in and out of consciousness, life going out of him, she sent a WhatsApp message to her best friend saying, "I have done something terrible." Another WhatsApp message she sent to her mother saying, "Sorry mom, we engaged in a fight." And to her sister-in-law's husband she texted, "Just pray for us, may God forgive." After this, she tried to take her own life by stabbing herself, but that didn't work. When she had finished narrating her story, investigators read out her rights and arrested her, and eventually she was arraigned in court where she pleaded not guilty. Now, remember the husband to Udeme's sister-in-law, the one she had gone to complain about her marriage issues? He said that on the night of the incident, he was on his way back home at about 11 p.m. He sent Udeme a WhatsApp message telling her that they had been on his mind, that is she and Odibi, but it was too late to call her and that he would be traveling the next day, but he will call her when he gets back. He told her in the message to go for her planned trip to the UK, take care of her mental health and give him the opportunity to talk to her husband Odibi while she was gone. To this message, she sent a response that she too would be leaving for the UK the same day as he was traveling, but she was worried that because when she leaves, Odibi would obviously continue having his affairs in her absence. He sent her some more messages, but she didn't reply until about 9 minutes past 12 a.m. when out of the blue she sent, "May God forgive." He sent a message back to her if he could call her, and her response was, "Just pray for us." So if you look at the timeline, this was about the time she had just committed the act. Now, according to her best friend, that night she got a message that read, "I have done something terrible," then followed by, "I have tried," from Udeme. So she called her back severally, but she didn't pick up. She replied her message asking her to pick up, but she didn't respond. At about 4 a.m., Udeme's mom, to whom she had also sent a message, remember the "sorry mom, we had a fight" message? Yes, so the mom contacted the best friend by that 4 a.m. to say that Udeme and Odibi had gotten into a fight and she isn't picking up her calls. So she's planning to travel to Lagos to check on her daughter by herself. But the friend told her that Udeme was billed to travel to the UK that day, and there would be no need for her to travel to Lagos. At about 5 a.m. thereabout, Udeme's mom called back and told her that Odibi was deceased and Udeme was responsible. That was how she found out on her own that her best friend had done something to her husband. As of today, Udeme is currently remanded in the famous Kirikiri prison where she awaits her trial. Listen, this entire situation seems to be premeditated, and this is by no means my own personal opinion. It's just the facts and the evidence available. For instance, to say that the kitchen utensil that Udeme used to harm her husband that night was actually bought that very day. Why would she need to buy new sharp kitchen utensils if she was leaving for the UK in a few hours and wasn't even going to need them anyways? Does it make any sense to you? Maybe we'll know more about this during her trial, because as at the time of this video, she's yet to be tried. I don't know how many years it will take. I mean, this is Nigeria we're talking about. People spend decades in jail without being tried, or it is said she could get a capital punishment if she's found guilty. The last time she was in court was when she was arraigned before an Igbosore High Court in Lagos on June 13, 2018, which was 4 years ago, and a little bit over a month after the incident, on 2-count charge of murder and misconduct with regard to a corpse. She pleaded not guilty and was remanded in prison custody. Udeme's counsel at the time sent an application seeking the leave of the court to reject her alleged confessional statement to the police, but the judge eventually ruled that the statement be accepted. At the time of the crime, Udeme was 47 and Odibi was 50 years old. His family and friends were devastated, especially his mother, who could not physically come to his aid when he called her that night. Following the incident, a lot of people didn't understand how Odibi didn't take himself out of the situation when things went downhill. But no one knows for sure what happened in that bedroom because no one was there. No one knows the exact sequence of events. Even though we have heard some version of it, there's always what we know and what actually happened. My heart goes out to his family, his mother, his sister, and his daughter who had lost a loved one. As for Udeme, what can I say? I wish she had just filed for a divorce if she felt the way she was feeling. I can't say I fully understand the situation she was in, but wrong is wrong. You have no right to take someone's life, period. And to add to this, yes, men too go through domestic situations that are not favorable, and they just might not want to talk about it or even admit it. I would at this point like to say the same way I would advise my fellow women, please, if you're watching and you're a man in a domestic violence type of situation, just to walk away for the sake of yourself and the sake of the people who love you. So that's it for today's case, guys. Kindly remember to subscribe and leave your thoughts and opinions in the comment section. Remember to be respectful to the families involved and to each other. And if this is your kind of content, kindly subscribe and click on the notification bell so you wouldn't miss any of my videos. If you have any case you would like to see me cover, please DM me on my Instagram. It's at Ennie_. Also leave the link in the description box. Until next video, bye.